If you had to name, the most powerful family in European history, you'd probably think of conquerors or kings.
Right, people with armies.
Exactly. But what if the family that basically reshaped Western civilization didn't win their power with swords, but with money?
Well, that is the story of the Medici family.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't inherit a throne. They built a financial empire so powerful it could fund popes and really the entire Renaissance.
So our goal here is to figure out how this one family of bankers took a single city, Florence, and turned it into the cultural capital of the world.
And it's a staggering story because, they started from almost nothing.
Okay, let's start right there. We are not talking about old nobility, are we?
Not at all. Their origins are incredibly humble. They were merchants, even charcoal burners from the Mugello region in Tuscany. No pedigree, no ancient right to rule,
Just ambition.
immense ambition. When they got to Florence, they dabbled in the textile trade. But the smart ones, they realized the real future wasn't in fabric. It was in finance.
In managing money.
It's exactly currency, deposits, international exchange. That's where the real power was.
And the one who really turned that into a professional empire was Giovanni de Medici.
Right. In 1397, he sets up the Medici Bank. And that single event, that's the foundation of the whole family fortune.
What's fascinating to me is how careful they were about their image, even from the very beginning.
Oh, absolutely. They were getting enormously wealthy, but they worked so hard to project this image of being, humble citizens.
Because they knew Florence was a republic.
Exactly. The city was suspicious of anyone who looked like a king or a dictator. So they sought influence behind the scenes. They wanted the power, but disguised as civic duty.
So how do you go from being a local Florentine banker to dominating the finances of an entire continent? It couldn't have just been about giving out loans.
No, it was about innovation. And their first big idea was scale, a global network.
So the Medici Bank wasn't just one office in Florence.
Not at all. They set up a system of branches in all the major European cities. London, Bruges, Venice, Rome, everywhere that mattered for trade.
But with all that money flowing between London and Bruges and Rome, how did you even keep track of it all? You'd need a perfect accounting system.
And they had one. They used double-entry bookkeeping.
Okay, explain that. What does that mean for them?
It's actually pretty simple in concept. For every single transaction, every deposit or withdrawal, it gets recorded in two separate places.
Like a built-in safety check.
Precisely. If the two records don't match up, you know instantly there's an error. Or maybe fraud.
That seems so obvious today, but back then?
Back then, it was a revolution. It built trust. Kings and popes knew the Medici books were flawless.
Yeah.
And that credibility, that was their single greatest asset.
Speaking of popes, who is their real game-changing client?
The absolute VIP was the papacy in Rome.
Managing the church's money.
Think about it. All the tithes and wealth from every corner of Europe flowing into Rome. The Medici became essentially the central bankers for God.
Which gave them a huge guaranteed income.
And unparalleled prestige. Plus, they made trade itself way safer with something called bills of exchange.
Right, so instead of carrying a chest full of gold across Europe...
Which was just asking to get robbed.
Yeah.
A merchant in Florence could just pay the Medici Bank, get a piece of paper, a promise, and then cash it safely at the Medici branch in London. The money never physically moved.
And at its peak, the Medici Bank was the biggest financial institution in the world.
In the known world, yeah. And that's where the money came from, the overflowing funds they needed to start bankrolling art and science.
So Giovanni builds a fortune. Then his son, Cosimo de Medici, he's the one who really starts turning that money into political power.
Cosimo becomes the unofficial ruler of Florence. And he was maybe one of the cleverest politicians ever. He hated official titles.
He preferred to work behind the scenes.
Yeah, he just made sure that all the key government positions were held by his supporters. He knew controlling the process was more powerful than sitting in the chair.
But that kind of quiet backroom power must have made his rivals extremely nervous.
Oh, it did. And in 1433, they managed to get him arrested and then exiled from the city.
But Florence quickly learned it couldn't live without him.
The city's economy immediately it collapsed. Trade stopped, credit dried up. The city was financially paralyzed.
So they begged him to come back.
A year later, he makes this triumphant return. And this time, he consolidates power for good. But he also uses his own personal wealth for huge public projects.
Like churches, hospitals, things that helped everyone.
Exactly. It ensured popular support. And he was a real intellectual. He loved ancient books, so he helped found the city's first public library.
So when he died, he was given the title Pater Patriae.
Father of the country. A title usually reserved for Roman emperors. The fact that a republic gave it to a banker just shows you the level of his power. He was a king who refused to wear a crown.
And his grandson, Lorenzo de Medici, takes that legacy even further.
Lorenzo the Magnificent. Maybe the most famous of them all.
And he was called the Magnificent, not for banking, but for his diplomacy and his deep love for the arts. He was really more of a scholar prince.
Under him, Florence hits its absolute cultural peak, becomes the most important city in the world, and he keeps it peaceful. He was a diplomatic genius, balancing all the feuding Italian city-states.
But here's the classic trade-off, isn't it? He's brilliant with politics and art, but he wasn't a very good banker.
No, he wasn't. He was so focused on everything else that the family business, the Medici Bank, actually starts to decline under his watch.
And his life was filled with drama, the Pazzi conspiracy in 1478.
A truly violent event. Rival families, led by the Pazzi, tried to assassinate him and his brother.
During Easter Mass in
Yeah.
the main cathedral.
They killed his brother, Giuliano, right there at the altar. Lorenzo was wounded, but he managed to escape. And surviving that attack it cemented his legend. The people saw him as being protected by God.
Which brings us to the core of the Medici legacy, their patronage of genius.
They didn't see spending money on art as just, vanity. They truly believed it was a way to honor God and to show the world the greatness of Florence.
And the list of artists they supported is just astounding. Donatello, Brunelleschi, Botticelli.
It's very likely that many of the most famous works of art in history just wouldn't exist without them. The genius was there, sure, but the Medici provided the resources, the time, the commissions.
And it was personal too, right? They didn't just write a check.
No, it was incredibly personal. They would often invite artists to come and live in their homes, treating them almost like family.
Which meant the artists didn't have to worry about rent or food.
They could just focus completely on their work. And they were surrounded by the family's collection of classical Greek and Roman art, which was like having a world-class museum as your classroom.
And this is how we get to maybe the greatest artist of them all, Michelangelo.
It's an amazing story. Lorenzo the Magnificent sees this young teenager sculpting in a garden and immediately invites him to come live in the Medici palace.
So Michelangelo gets the best education possible right alongside the Medici children.
Exactly. He's studying philosophy and history, and he's surrounded by these ancient masterpieces every single day. That's the foundation for works like the David.
And he stayed loyal to them. Years later, he designed the Medici chapel for the family tombs.
It shows how they supported genius from cradle to grave. But what's really important is that they weren't just looking to the past. Later generations became huge supporters of modern science.
Right. The best example is Galileo Galilei,
Cosimo de Medici was Galileo's former student, and he became his main protector.
which was crucial because Galileo's ideas, like the Earth revolving around the sun, were considered heresy by the church.
Absolutely. Galileo needed that protection. And when he discovered Jupiter's 4 largest moons with his telescope, he named them the Medicean stars as a tribute to his patrons.
So they made Florence a hub for art and then for science, too.
Yes, they even founded one of the first societies dedicated to experimental science, the Accademia del Cimento.
And their influence just keeps spreading. It doesn't stay in Florence.
No, through smart politics and marriages, they reached the highest levels of power in Europe.
We get the Medici popes.
2 of them. First, Pope Leo X, then his cousin, Pope Clement VII. Having a pope in the family was the ultimate symbol of success.
And they continued the family tradition in Rome, right?
Of course. They commissioned Raphael to paint his famous rooms in the Vatican and hired Michelangelo for, the small job of painting the Sistine Chapel ceiling.
Then you have Catherine de Medici, Lorenzo's great-granddaughter. She marries the King of France.
Puts a Medici right in the center of the French court. And after her husband dies, she becomes the queen mother and basically rules France as regent for her sons for decades.
And she brings a lot of Italian culture with her.
She does. New styles of cooking, dancing, fashion. A lot of people say she's the one who introduced the fork to the French dinner table.
What? They didn't use forks before.
It was seen as this weird, overly fussy Italian thing. She also commissioned the Tuileries Palace in Paris. It's an unbelievable climb.
But it doesn't last forever. By the 1600s, the family's focus starts to shift.
It does. They become the Grand Dukes of Tuscany, so they're official royalty now. But they sort of lose that financial edge that made them powerful in the first place.
The bank eventually closes down.
Yeah, they're more interested in titles and land than in cutting-edge international finance. That, plus a lack of male heirs, eventually brings the dynasty to an end.
The last male ruler, Gaston de Medici, dies in 1737, but the family's most important act was still to come.
And that's all thanks to the very last member, Anna Maria Luisa de Medici. Before she died, she signed a legal document, the Family Pact.
And what did that do?
It ensured that all of Medici art collections, every painting, every sculpture, everything they had collected over 300 years, would stay in Florence forever, for the public to enjoy.
That one decision is why Florence is the city it is today. All that art in the Uffizi Gallery and the Pitti Palace.
It's their final and greatest gift. The Medici proved that financial power could literally transform civilization. They funded the entire artistic and scientific boom of the Renaissance.
So the next time you hear about some tech genius or a world-changing artist, maybe even see a Renaissance masterpiece, you should ask yourself, would any of this even exist if a 15th century banker hadn't decided to invest his fortune in human genius?
A question that really defines the modern world. See you next time.